This is Carrie Johnson with the Iowa Department of Management, and to assist counties as they submit their 2020 property valuations to the Department of Management valuation system, I'm going to go over a few pieces of information regarding administration of tax increment financing in the DOM system. A lot of the year-to-year changes that folks might experience regarding submitting their valuations may be due to having to administer TIF within their county. So I prepared a 5-part series that goes over how to administer TIF in the DOM system. The first part of the series, though, I'm just going to give, just as a way to sort of lay the groundwork, I'm just going to give a brief introduction and background of tax increment financing itself if you're not familiar. This is not meant to be an exhaustive description of TIF and how it works, but meant to give an overview if you're completely unfamiliar with TIF itself. Like I said, to give an overview and maybe clarify a few items that you need to know, and also point you as county auditor or staff working and administering TIF, point you in the direction of different code citations or documentations that you'll receive regarding TIF that will help you administer it. So, and this is, as I mentioned, really intended to be the basics. But first of all, we'll start off talking about what is TIF. TIF, or tax increment financing, is a method of reallocating property tax revenues as a result of an increase in valuation above a base valuation figure. Tax revenues produced by property tax levies, except for certain protected levies, which in statute are debt service, school PEPL, and school ISL. PEPL meaning physical plant and equipment, and ISL meaning instructional support. So tax revenues produced by property tax levies other than those that are imposed on that increased value by all levy authorities are diverted or allocated back to the TIF authority to repay them for debt they incurred to make projects happen in an urban renewal area. So primarily TIF is used as a method to finance and repay debt incurred to make projects happen in an urban renewal area. And so the idea then is that all tax authorities will benefit at some point from the increased value and increased tax revenue. In the term of the TIF, what's going to happen is that the TIF authority that sort of went out on a limb, I guess you could say, and incurred debt to make the projects happen, they're going to use that increased value that's coming in to repay them for their debt. And then at the end of the day, hopefully all that tax base will go back to and be available to all levy authorities. So who can be TIF authorities? Cities and counties are the primary users here that we talk about, right? So that's Chapter 403, which talks about cities and counties. So if you want more information about exactly what the statutory language is, that's the Code of Iowa reference you'd go to. Community colleges have traditionally had authority under 260E. In statute. I do not believe any are currently using that statute to generate TIF revenue. And then we also have rural improvement zones, which are recreational lake districts, and there's a handful of those in the state. They're covered by Chapter 357H of the code, and they use a TIF mechanism to fund projects in the recreational lake district. And if you have one of those, then you know it. So what is the urban renewal process? A city or county is going to adopt an urban renewal plan. Chapter 403 of the code requires that there be a resolution of necessity, saying that this is, a required action from the local government body. And in that resolution, they're going to state whether or not it's slum or blight elimination or economic development or a combination thereof. And meaning that that's the reason for undertaking the urban renewal process. And they're going to say also that rehabilitation or development is in the best interests of the public. So that meets the public purpose test that needs to happen in order for this to move forward. The plan is going to identify boundaries. It's going to identify plan objectives and projects. And then the submission of the plan is required to a planning commission if the local government body has a planning commission. They have to have notice and public hearing, and they also have to have a consultation with the affected levy authorities. Consultation is simply that. It's a meeting in which the parties would get together and have an explanation and answer questions regarding the urban renewal plan and process. Boundary restrictions. Cities operate within their city limits, as you can imagine. They also can operate within the 2-mile area outside the city with the county's consent. Counties operate in the area outside the 2-mile area surrounding the city, and they can also operate within that 2-mile area or even within the city if it's agreed to by the city. So there may be situations where a city and county want to undertake certain projects. They're both on board with it in partnership, but perhaps maybe the county, for whatever reason, is going to take the lead on initiating the urban renewal process. There are restrictions regarding ag land. Slum or blighted areas cannot include ag land. Economic development areas cannot include ag land or century farmland unless the owner agrees. So economic development areas, can include that type of property, but only if the owner is in agreement. So we've adopted a plan as a TIF authority. Then they must also adopt a TIF ordinance. So the ordinance itself is what's actually going to put forth the authority to divide revenue and initiate tax increment financing. Keep in mind that urban renewal plans and TIF ordinances can be amended at any time. And so that's something to be aware of. Even if you have existing urban renewal plans within your county, you might see in any given year documentation submitted to you that would amend those plans in any particular way. So just be aware that at any given year, any existing area urban renewal plan, it can be amended. So TIF projects and debt. The TIF authority, then, they have the urban renewal area. They're going to initiate projects, infrastructure projects, roads, streets, sewers, that sort of thing, economic development loans or grants to businesses, or slum and blight elimination, such as building demolition and things of that nature. So there could be all kinds of different projects that may be initiated to undertake the redevelopment of an area. To do those projects, then, the TIF authority is going to incur debt. And the debt can take the form of many different things. It can be a rebate agreement or a development agreement with a private business. It could be an internal loan where the TIF authority is borrowing from their general fund, per se, in order to finance a project and get it going. It can also be more traditional forms of debt that you would see, such as bonds or notes. Sunsets. Slum and blight designation has no sunset. Economic development plans are 20 years or more for newer plans, those that are adopted after January 1 of 1995. So, based on our time frame, obviously some of those are nearing expiration. So you want to make sure that you're aware of any sort of plans that might be ending, nearing the end of their time, and that you're planning accordingly and communicating with that TIF authority. Economic development for non-LMI housing. LMI is low and moderate income housing. So if you have a urban renewal plan, that's an economic development plan, but it's specifically for housing that's not intended for low and moderate income. Those are limited to 10 or 15 years, conditional time limits. The frozen base year, the 100% base valuation is established in different ways based on when the TIF ordinance was actually adopted. For most of them that you're going to see out there now, they were adopted after January 1 of 1995. And the frozen base year valuation is a valuation on January 1 of the calendar year prior to the year in which TIF indebtedness is first certified with a county auditor. So you would look to Iowa Code 403.19.1a for more specifics on that. For much older TIF ordinances. They might still be in place for some of your, slum and blight plans that have no end date. Those ordinances, if they're adopted prior to January 1, 1995, the 100% frozen base value is the valuation on January 1 of the calendar year prior to the year in which the TIF ordinance was adopted. TIF debt certification. So in order for the TIF authority to receive revenue to pay them back, to receive this TIF revenue to pay them back for the debt they incurred to do the projects in the area, they need to have a communication to the county auditor to let them know this is our TIF debt, this is what we need repaid from TIF revenue. So county auditor, please divide this TIF revenue and submit it to us so we can repay this debt that we incurred. And that communication is a certification of TIF debt. It is due to the county by December 1 for the next fiscal year. And the county is going to complete a TIF reconciliation form each year and send those out to the TIF authorities as soon as possible after December 1. The county auditor provides TIF taxes without further certification unless there's additional debt incurred or the TIF authority is requesting fewer TIF taxes. So in the very first year that someone incurs debt, they're going to certify that TIF debt. And they don't need to recertify that same debt each year unless there's a change to that debt. So, maybe they're reducing the amount of the debt because they're paying part of it from another source, or they need to certify an additional debt for that area, that sort of thing. But each year, the county auditor is required to then complete a reconciliation form and send that out to the TIF authorities. This is just a way to make sure that the communication is flowing year to year and that the county auditor and the TIF authority are on the same page with what the outstanding debt looks like for that TIF area. And the reconciliation form is just a simple Excel file. You can find it on our website and download it. It's not changed in the past several years, so that's something you can use to help with the process. If you have any questions, please feel free to call me. You can reach me at my number or send me an email and I will follow up with you. Thank you. Goodbye.